will you allow the American government to have CIA here in Pakistan to conduct cross-border counter-terrorism missions against Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or the Taliban?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's no way we're going to allow any bases, any sort of action from Pakistani territory into Afghanistan. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
वज़ीर-ए-आज़म इमरान खान ने एक बयान ने अमेरिका को हिलाकर रख दिया। ये बयान वज़ीर-ए-आज़म इमरान खान ने अमेरिकी सहाफ़ी को इंटरव्यू देते हुए दिया था। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म इमरान खान के इस जवाब पर अमेरिकी सहाफ़ी हक्का-बक्का रह गए। वज़ीर-ए-आज़म इमरान खान ने इंटरव्यू में वाज़ेह किया है कि अफ़गानिस्तान में एक्शन के लिए पाकिस्तानी ज़मीन इस्तेमाल करने की इजाज़त नहीं देंगे।
Excellencies, I just want to make a couple of comments because President Ashraf Ghani mentioned Pakistan's negative role in this conflict going on in Afghanistan. President Ghani, let me just say that the country that is going to be most affected by turmoil in Afghanistan is Pakistan. Pakistan suffered 70,000 people dead, 70,000 casualties in the last 15 years. The last thing Pakistan wants is more conflict. Our economy is finally recovering from one of the most difficult phases which we've been through. And I repeat, the last thing we want is turbulence in Afghanistan. I can assure you that no country has tried harder to get Taliban on the dialogue table than Pakistan. We have made every effort, short of taking military action against Taliban in Pakistan, we have made every effort to get them on the dialogue table and to have a peaceful settlement there. To blame Pakistan for what is going on in Afghanistan, I feel is extremely unfair. I came to Kabul. Why would I come to Kabul if I was not interested in peace? The whole idea was that you should have looked upon Pakistan as a partner in peace. And I feel really disappointed that we have been blamed for what is going on in Afghanistan. If this goes wrong, you hope for the best, but be prepared for the worst. If a conventional war starts between the two countries, Mr. President, if a conventional war starts, and anything could happen, but supposing a country 7 times smaller than its neighbor is faced with the choice, either you surrender or you fight for your freedom till death, what will we do? I ask myself this question. And my belief is, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but one. And we will fight. And when a nuclear armed country fights to the end, it will have consequences far beyond the borders. It will have consequences for the world, which is why I repeat I'm here. Because I'm warning you, it's not a threat. It's a fair worry that where are we headed? And I've come here to tell the UN, you've got to, this is a test for the United Nations. You are the one who guaranteed the people of Kashmir the right of self-determination. They are suffering because of that. And this is the time. This is the time not to appease like in 1939 appeasement took place. This is the time to take action. And number one action must be that India must lift this inhuman curfew, which has lasted for 55 days. It must free all political prisoners, and especially those 13,000 boys that have been picked up. Parents don't know where they've disappeared. And then the world community must give the people of Kashmir the right of self-determination. Thank you.
अगर आप ये समझते हैं कि आप पाकिस्तान के ऊपर कुछ किसी किस्म का हमला करेंगे, पाकिस्तान रिटेलिएट करने का सोचेगा नहीं, पाकिस्तान रिटेलिएट करेगा। पाकिस्तान कोई और दूसरा रास्ता नहीं होगा रिटेलिएट करने के बगैर, जवाब देने के बगैर। और उसके बाद बात किधर जाती है?
मेरा नाम विंग कमांडर अभिनंदन है। मैं भारतीय वायुसेना में एक लड़ाकू विमान चालक हूँ। मैं टारगेट ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रहा था। आपके एयरफोर्स ने मुझे गिराया, उसके बाद मुझे अपना जहाज छोड़ना पड़ा था जो टूट गया था, और मैंने इजेक्ट किया।
हिंदुस्तान का पायलट हमने पकड़ा हुआ है। हम एज ए पीस जेस्चर हम उसको कल रिहा करने लगे हैं हिंदुस्तान को वापस।
इमरान साहब, एक छोटा सा सवाल ले लीजिए, क्या बात और आतंकवाद दोनों चल सकता है? ये भारत की तरफ से आपसे सीधा सवाल है।
भारत से तो हम कह सकते हैं कि हम कितनी देर की इंतज़ार कर रहे हैं कि हम सिविलाइज्ड हमसाये बन के रहें, लेकिन करें क्या, एक आरएसएस की आइडियोलॉजी रास्ते में आ गई है।
लेकिन क्या तालिबान पे आपका कंट्रोल नहीं है? इमरान साहब जवाब ले लीजिए। इमरान साहब जवाब ले लीजिए।
I always pictured that one day I would be speaking at this summit, and I always promised myself that whenever I got this opportunity, I would raise the first and foremost, the most important question about whenever in the Western countries people blaspheme our Prophet, peace be upon him. I always felt that the response from the Muslim Ummah, the OIC, I always felt it was lacking. And therefore I wanted to use this platform that the OIC owes a responsibility. Us heads of the states, we have a responsibility to the Muslim world. When anyone in the Western world blasphemes our Prophet, peace be upon him, it is a failure of the OIC that we have not been able to explain to the Western countries that the love and affection that we feel for our Holy Prophet, that how he lives in our hearts, it was up to us to explain to the Western people that the amount of pain they cause us when they ridicule or mock our Holy Prophet. And we must know that in the West, people do not treat religion the way the Muslim world treats Islam. We live our religion. In the Western world, they have a completely different attitude to the way they approach religion. And so therefore, on this, Mr. Chairman, I would like to say from this platform that we must, in the forums like the United Nations, forums like the European Union, we must explain to them that they cannot hurt the sentiment of 1.3 billion people under the garb of freedom of expression. The Jewish community has very successfully explained to the world that any misinterpretation of the Holocaust gives them pain. And so the Western world views Holocaust with a lot of sensitivity. But that sensitivity is lacking when they come to talking about our Holy Quran or Prophet, peace be upon him. So I feel that this forum must take it upon itself to explain to the Western world through these forums what it means to us and how we love and respect our Holy Prophet.
हर रोज जी हम सड़कों पर निकलने लगे हैं, जी हम अभी पब्लिक में आ रहे हैं, हम जी गवर्नमेंट गिरा देंगे। ये आप किसी और को ब्लैकमेल करें, ये सुन लें, मैं अपने घर में रहता हूँ, मैं इस घर का खुद खर्चा अदा करता हूँ, ये कैंप ऑफिस नहीं है। यहाँ जब सिक्योरिटी का फेंस की ज़रूरत पड़ी, हमने तहरीक इंसाफ ने पैसा इकट्ठा करके वो फेंस लगाया। नीचे सड़क ख़राब थी, मैंने पैसे देके सड़क ठीक करवाई है। मैं अपने घर का खर्चा खुद देता हूँ अपनी तनख्वाह से। मेरा कोई कैंप ऑफिस नहीं है, ज़मान पा के पैसे मैं देता हूँ। मुझे कोई ब्लैकमेल करने की कोशिश करे ना कि मेरी गवर्नमेंट चाह रही है, ये तो बड़ी छोटी चीज़ है गवर्नमेंट जाने की। मेरी जान भी चली जाए ना, मैंने इन चोरों और डाकुओं को नहीं छोड़ना। ये मेरा अपनी कौम से वादा है। ये मैं अल्लाह को कह के आया था कि मैंने कहा अल्लाह मुझे एक मौका दे दे, एक मौका दे। जो इन्होंने मेरे मुल्क के साथ किया, मैंने इनको किसी सूरत नहीं छोड़ना। जितना मर्जी शोर मचाए असेंबलियों में, ये असेंबलियों में जो गालियाँ बुरा भला कह रहे हैं, जिस तरह कि मुझे फ़र्क पड़ जाएगा। मैं वो हूँ जो 1 लाख लोगों के स्टेडियम में जाता था मुखालिफ ग्राउंड के अंदर, और सारे मुझे बुरा भला कह रहे होते थे। मुझे इन थोड़े से लोगों से कोई ज़िंदगी में फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता, लेकिन मेरा जो मर्ज़ी आपने करना करे, मैं आज आप सबको बता रहा हूँ। एक एक को मैंने जिसने इस मुल्क को नुकसान पहुँचाया, इंशाल्लाह मैं आपको नहीं छोड़ूंगा, क्योंकि मुझे पता है मेरे लोगों के ऊपर क्या गुजर रही है। अब फ़र्क मैं आपको बताता हूँ क्या है। इमरान खान अपनी कुर्सी बचाने के लिए नहीं आया, इमरान खान इस मुल्क में तब्दीली लाने के लिए आया है। और तब्दीली तब आएगी जब इन माफिया को शिकस्त देंगे।
नौजवानों ये याद रखना कि अगर ये माफिया रह गए इस मुल्क का कोई मुस्तकबिल नहीं है। ये वो लोग हैं जिनके पैसे और दौलत बाहर पड़ी हुई है। इस मुल्क से पैसा चोरी, रुपया एक वजह से तो ये गिरता इसलिए है कि हम एक्सपोर्ट कम करते हैं, इंपोर्ट ज्यादा करते हैं, लेकिन दूसरी वजह से क्यों रुपया गिरता है? मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग से। जब यहां से पैसा चुरा के हुंडी और हवाले से डॉलर लेके पैसा बाहर भेज देते हैं। ये सब इनके पास पैसा किधर से आया? ये शरीफ खानदान के सारे जो बच्चे हैं, 8 अरब रुपए के घर में रहता है हसन शरीफ, किधर से पैसा आया? जो मरियम के नाम पे मेफेयर के फ्लैट हैं वो अरबों रुपए के हैं, किधर से पैसा आया? वो हुसैन शरीफ, वो अरबों की प्रॉपर्टीज है उनकी, किधर से आया पैसा? वो इसहाक डार जिसके वालिद साइकिलों की दुकान थी, वो आज अरबोपति, उसके बेटे अरबोपति हैं। क्यों भागे हुए हैं? क्यों मुल्क से बाहर भागे हुए हैं? क्यों नहीं आके जवाब देते?
Thank you.
अच्छा, Azim, did you say I begged President Trump?
No, you met President.
Oh, thanks.
You
I don't. I've never begged from anyone. So I have met and I apprised President Trump exactly of the situation, and I have told him, like I have told you, the gravity of the situation. This could go serious. Look, intelligent human beings start thinking ahead. I mean, you have to think of the hope for the best, but you should be prepared for the worst. The worst scenario in this is unthinkable. Normal human beings do not think of that. And so therefore, it is my job to tell them, in my opinion, things will deteriorate. We will keep them apprised. At least we have informed the world community what's going on. And if India blames Pakistan for this, then at least the world would know about it. Just a brief, anyone who knows about history, desperate human beings throughout history have committed what are called suicide attacks. Before 9/11, 75% of suicide attacks were by Tamil tigers who were Hindus. No one talked about Hinduism having anything to do with that, with the suicide attacks. And everyone, we have watched so many films of the Japanese suicide attacks on American ships at the end of Second World War. No one blamed their religion, because religion has nothing to do with, no religion has anything to do with terrorism. Almost all terrorism is connected to politics. It's political perceived injustices that produces desperate people. But constantly, and even now, we keep hearing about radical Islam. There is only one Islam, the Islam of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, which we follow. There is no other Islam. In human communities, majority are moderates, they are liberals, and on one side they are fanatics. Everywhere. What about the white supremacists who walk into and kill 49 worshippers in New Zealand? What has that got to do with religion? So it's very important. This is the best forum. We must talk about it. Muslims must talk about separating terrorism with Islam. Yes, Muslim societies have fanatics, same as Christian societies, same as Jewish societies. And let's not forget that in India, extremists have taken over the country, racial extremists. So, number one, my point is that this has to be addressed. We keep hearing world leaders talk about radical Islam. It is causing, how is a man in the street in New York supposed to tell who's a radical Muslim and who's a moderate Muslim? How can anyone tell? So all Muslims are branded, Muslims are branded as fanatics, terrorists. And whenever some sort of attack goes, a terrorist attack happens in the West, first thing, every Muslim starts worrying, I hope it's not a Muslim. Because immediately we are all branded. And I remember after 9/11, I get a phone call from this Western journalist, and he said, aren't you really ashamed of what has happened?
There are 1.3 billion Muslims. Am I supposed to be ashamed of what anyone does any Muslim does?
So, it is important to understand this. The Prophet lives in our hearts. When he's ridiculed, when he's insulted, it hurts. As we human beings understand one thing: the pain of the heart is far, far, far more hurtful than physical pain. And that's why the Muslims react. And I always thought that if I ever had the stage, I would try and explain this to the world community, especially to the Western community, because having lived in the Western community, people didn't understand this. When I first went as a teenager to England, there was a comedy film on Jesus Christ. It's unthinkable in Muslim societies. So we need to explain that, look, in a human community, we must be sensitive to what causes pain to other human beings. We have, in the Western society, and quite rightly, the Holocaust is treated with sensitivity because it gives the Jewish community pain. That's all we ask. That do not use freedom of speech to cause us pain by insulting our holy prophet. That's all we want.